Welcome back, everyone. Mike McConville here. We have all seen examples of relict guitars. This Strat here is Aaron, who's a longtime customer, good friend locally, and they've done a pretty cool job of relicking this Strat. But have you ever seen a relict acoustic guitar? So anyone who's even mildly involved with the guitar industry has certainly seen one of these Art and Lutherie little parlor guitars that have kind of taken the market by storm. Penny for penny, they're pretty hard to beat. This guitar is also owned by a longtime customer, local guy, good friend. Matt has several guitars, so he just dropped this one off to get it tweaked, compensated nut, get it kind of playing to the max. But I got something else to show you. So on the other tech deck, here is the relict version of this Art and Lutherie guitar. How's that for a bit of playing wear? This has had a rough ride, but Ken absolutely loves this little guitar. We're going to take care of it for him. And as always, you'll get a play-by-play, step-by-step. Button your seatbelts, people. This is going to be quite a ride. I recently did a Larrabee guitar for Ken, this customer, and obviously he's logged in some pretty serious time on this one. The bridge is lifting. That's the first thing. It's got to come off and be re-glued. So let's start there. So here's a good close look, and you can see that bridge is coming up all the way across to about here. So we're going to heat that up, slip that off. We'll start there. We'll set that timer for 7 minutes. One of the most difficult things to do is to prepare the bridge surface to get an intimate contact with the soundboard surface. So this disc is not flat. It actually has, you can barely, the camera barely even picks it up, but it's a 24-foot spherical radius. Typically over time the steel string bridge wants to pull up like so, and it creates what people refer to as a belly behind the bridge. And also the action raises. So one of the bonuses of having this sander is that as I'm sanding, I can actually lean towards the back side of the bridge slightly, and buy back all of that real estate of string pull. Years ago I used to make up sort of a radius block and let the students kind of do it by hand, but man, this fast tracks that job big time. We have arrived, 100% contact, over to the joiner table. So as I bring you in close, see how slight that radius is? But because it's a spherical radius, the bottom side of that surface has been held up against a ball 48 feet high. It means that the perimeter of the bridge will make contact before the center of the bridge will. And that little bit of flexing is going to guarantee you 100% contact. Now, if you look closely at this edge, you'll see how the wing of the bridge is thinner on that back half. So I have actually tilted the bridge back, which does a couple of things. It buys back all that real estate of years of string pull, but it also increases the tension at the focal point on the saddle. Think about this. The saddle's in like so. As the bridge leans up, the amount of tension decreases at that focal point. As it tilts back, it gets tighter. So this is just good physics for the guitar all the way around, acoustically and structurally. Okay, let's go look at the guitar. The tongue depressor creates a perfect flat surface to receive that radius bridge foot. So I'm bringing you in close to show you the sort of geometry that happens when you put that spherical radius on the foot of the bridge. Now this is the dry run, but you'll see when I actually do the wet run and glue it, we'll get glue squeeze 360. So this bridge will never lift again, guaranteed. Now the other thing, and I mean you see online people clamping the top down and getting rid of the belly, and I'm sorry, but I just don't get it. Why would you force the belly down like that? There's no reason for it. It's natural for a guitar to pull up like that after 30, 40, 50, 100 years. In most cases, you just leave it alone. If you're changing the bridge plate, that might give you an opportunity to kind of soften the radius that's pulled up over the course of a half a century or a quarter of a century. But in most cases, no, I never try to flatten the belly on an acoustic guitar. You're adding unneeded stress. And even if you do flatten the belly, well, you probably end up popping a few braces in the process. So no belly flattening here. This isn't a keto diet. On the end here, you can see how much this bridge has been tilted back, which increases the tension at the focal point on the saddle. The other thing is, we're actually reducing the mass of the bridge. This was pretty thick. You'll see the thickness of the bridge on that brand new Art and Lutherie, same model. It's quite a bit thicker. So we're lightening, reducing the mass, we're increasing the gluing surface, and we're tightening up the focal point on the saddle all the way across. So I just wanted to show you the dry run. I'm all set up. I have a little clamp pad here. You'll see when I take it apart. This caul bridges the saddle slot and puts pressure on the middle of the bridge, and you'll see the glue squeeze. When I go to clean that up, I'll bring you in for a good close look. Just using regular carpenter's glue for this one. I am heating it up a little bit. I like to have warm wood, warm glue when I'm gluing, so I've actually raised the temperature in the shop, and I'm heating up the wood glue a little bit before we spread it. Okay, so we got those fasteners in, and they are a smaller diameter than the hole. It allows me to actually line up that bridge with the original footprint. So I'm going to snug them down just a little bit by hand. And then I've got my scoop up sticks here. I'm going to take up the lion's share of that glue squeeze. This way I can actually see the footprint. It's a clamp I made up 35 years ago. I like to have the clamp in two pieces. This is a little tricky to get in this one. A little bit smaller sound hole and a smaller guitar. We get the clamps in place first. Okay. These are the clamping blocks for the wings. They actually have a radius on the inside so that we get the pressure. When we clamp, we get the pressure where we want it on these outside tips. Good, liking that. Other side. Other side. So I keep the blocks back so that they are not in the way of my little scoop up stick. When it comes time to scoop up the glue, which is going to be very shortly. Now I have a little oak caul that kind of hops over the bridge slot, and this basically puts the pressure on the center of the bridge. Well, unfortunately the battery died on me just as I was cleaning up that glue squeeze. So we'll have to get that on the next bridge re-glue for you. So I've let this sit for about an hour and a half, so it'll be fine now. We'll get it out of these clamps. There's a bunch more work I got to do yet. We're not done with this one. Just wanted to get that bridge re-glue out of the way first. So that's the fastener configuration I use, so 2 rubber-lined washers. Well, my next step is to heat up that label inside and peel it back, because this bottom fastener needs to be snugged down. Okay, we'll see if we can peel back that label. Will it peel or will it rip? So we did get lucky. So I peeled that label back. Don't take it off. Just fold it back like a page so that we can put it right back where it belongs. And I don't know if the camera's showing this or not, but that bolt is indeed loose. It needs to be snugged down. I'll bring you over to the heel and you can see what I mean. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. That bolt on the inside needs to be tightened up. This is with no string tension, so this was one of the reasons why it was pulling up. So we're on that bolt. Now, you got to remember, and I've mentioned this in other videos, don't reef on this. It's metal against wood. Wood's going to lose every time. So here's a little trick for hanging on to those nuts and saddles and veneers and little bits and pieces as your fingers get closer and closer to the disc sander. This is essentially a continuous hinge, two-sided tape, and 120 grit sanding paper. I have this, as you know, on a foot switch, and I have just sanded that bass side down. We're trying to reduce the sharpness on those three bass strings. So back to the guitar, we're going to take another read on this. So I've taken a tracing off the original saddle and marked those original values all the way across, just so we know where we're going with this. But this is a horse of a different color. The cantilever on this saddle is actually going back towards the bridge pins. So here's where we got to start. These are the actual values that were on the original saddle. I've got all these values marked so we know how much to adjust. Now this came right to the very back of the saddle, so it's got to go 8 cents. So I'm going to move it back to about here. This was in dead center in the original saddle. It's got to come back 5 cents. So we're going to start there. This needs to move back 6 cents. I'm going to bring it back to about here. We'll start there. The G was perfect, so I don't touch that. The B was 4 cents flat, so I'm going to just move that up a little bit. And the E was 2 cents flat, so I'm going to move that right to the very edge. So we're going to start there with our values. So I'm using my handy dandy drill press disc sander to kind of pare this back. Over to the guitar. So if you remember on the last reading, this was actually 8 sharp. Now it's 4 flat, which means we got lots of real estate to kind of move that forward. These strings are still a bit higher than they need to be, which gives me lots to work with. I will double check that radius to make sure it matches the fingerboard as I work. So I'm going to make these adjustments, and I'm going to come back and check it again. And the third string, or G string, was 3 cents sharp, so I'll bring that back. The B was 7 cents sharp, so I'm going to bring that back quite a bit. And our high E was 8 cents. Okay. Back to the guitar. So I'm bringing you in very close here because I'm looking at this and I can see that this little ledge here, it's resting on the rosewood. Can't have that. Want to make sure that this part of the nut goes right down flush against the floor, especially if you have a pickup. So I'm going to go back to the radius sander and just nick that. I'd rather see a little bit of space all the way across than to see it resting on the rosewood. So we're going to just nip that for a second. Back to the guitar. Well, that time around we got 4 out of 6 strings are bang on the money. We just got to tweak that low A and low E string. They've got to come forward. There's still 5 flat. So I'll sand that with 600 grit, and that'll be our final finesse. Here we go, final call, moment of truth. And that's the ticket. On to the compensated nut. Okay, final touch. 6th string, open, and 1st fret. 5th string, and 1st fret. 4th string, open, and 1st fret. 3rd string, open, and 1st fret. 2nd string, open, and 1st fret. 1st string, open, and 1st fret. We're done. And Ken is on his way up, so I'm going to have to make this quick. D, E, F, C sharp minor, So there is the final call on that saddle, and this is the final call on the nut. So we went with the 11 to 52 strings at concert pitch. So they're just that tad lighter, 1 thou all the way across, than your regular 12 to 53.